Your brain has a hidden way to enter flow, but most people block it without realizing it. If you've ever tried to force flow, you already know it doesn't work. That's because flow isn't about effort, it's about setup. There's a simple system you can use to trigger it on command in minutes, starting with how you begin, and the one mistake that ruins most sessions before they even start. So most people think getting into flow is about trying harder, locking in, removing distractions, and forcing focus. You sit down, you try to focus, but somehow your brain just doesn't want to cooperate. You start switching between tasks, opening different tabs, start second guessing if you're even working on the right thing, and you just feel stuck before you even started feeling any momentum. It feels like a discipline problem, and that's why a lot of people start looking up how to be more disciplined. But the reality of the fact that it's not a discipline problem. The real problem is how you're starting, because most people begin their sessions without a clear target. They try to be productive. They try to work on this or work on that, or try to get stuff done. But what you're missing is a specific defined thing that your brain can actually lock onto. Your brain loves specificity. And when it doesn't have that, that's why it's so easy to jump between tasks, because you're not very specific. And you start jumping between things and flow just slips away. And this matters way more than people think, because flow isn't something you just have in 30 minutes into the session. It's something you either trigger at the start or you spend your entire time trying to get into flow, especially when you're learning a skill. You want to be very specific about what part of the skill you're working on. Instead of saying, I'll do 30 minutes of guitar, say, I'm working on transitioning smoothly between G and C chord. If your target is vague, your reps are vague. And if your reps are vague, your progress is slow. So before we talk about any system, any environment, or anything else, you need to understand this first. Flow doesn't come from effort, it comes from clarity. And the way you start determines everything. And once you have that clarity, the next step is what actually lets your brain drop into flow. Because even with a clear target, most people still start in a way that kills their focus instantly. So once you have a clear target, the next step is actually how you start your session. Because this is where most people go wrong. They sit down, immediately try to go all in, hardest task, full intensity, zero ramp up. And what happens? Your brain resists, you feel friction, you hesitate, you procrastinate, you do everything but the work. Not because you're lazy, but because you started wrong. Your brain doesn't switch into flow instantly. It needs to warm up. Just like in the gym, you don't walk in and bench your max right away. If you do, you're gonna hurt yourself, you're gonna fail, and it's gonna hurt. Same deal here. Starting too hard and it overwhelms your system, and you're supposed to ease into it. So ease into it. So instead of starting at 100%, you start at 60, 70%. Something hard enough to engage your brain, but not so hard that it fights you. If you're learning a skill, this is your warm-up rep. Maybe you mess around for 5 minutes just to get your brain warmed up, but not the full performance. Just the first clean repetition. For example, instead of jumping straight into writing a full essay, you start by outlining one section. Instead of doing a complex escape, you practice an easier one. Instead of trying to code the entire feature, you fix one small part first. And once you start like this, you'll notice something. Flow becomes a lot easier to enter. But starting correctly is only one piece, because even if you have a clear target and you ease into it the right way, you could still break flow completely just from how your environment is set up. So once you have a clear target and you start your session the right way, the last piece is your environment, because this is where people sabotage their flow without even realizing it. They sit down to work, their phone's right next to them, notifications are on, tabs open, they have a million tabs open, and background noise just pulling their attention. They're too distracted to focus. Because your brain is always scanning your environment and every distraction is a signal. Phone nearby means social mode. Who's texting me? Who's calling me? Notification puts you in that reactive mode. Oh, I just heard a ping. What is that? Multiple tabs just create that scattered attention. So instead of going deep, your attention is split between your phone, your tabs, and all these different things that are occupying your brain. And it never gets the opportunity to go deep into focus. So if you actually want to enter flow on command, you need to control the signals. Here's how. Step 1, clear your environment. Remove anything that's competing for your attention. Put your phone out of reach, on silent, turn off notifications, keep only one task in front of you to focus on. Step 2, set a clear target. Know exactly what part of the task you're working on. Nothing vague, no 30 minutes of work. Make it as specific as possible. Step 3, start at the 60 to 70%. Begin with a warm-up rep instead of a full-on intensity. Choose something challenging enough to engage your brain, but not so hard it creates resistance and makes you tense up. Step 4, stack it all together, combine a clear target, and ease in start in a clean environment. Your brain has no reason to resist. Momentum builds, focus locks in, and flow becomes something you can actually trigger, not chase. And if you follow that, you're already ahead of most people. You can sit down, lock in, and actually get into flow. But there's one more layer. Even when you do everything right, your brain can still make focus feel harder than it needs to be. And it comes down to something almost nobody thinks about. It comes down to how stimulated your brain is before you start. Your brain adapts to what you feed it. Most people work 60 to 90 minutes and then they reach for a high stimulation break. Social media, YouTube, Netflix, and then they try to get back into work, wondering why focus feels so heavy, slow, and boring, and just momentum is gone. And you're like, it's so hard for me to focus. I wish I had more discipline. But the problem is your brain gets used to the constant spikes of stimulation. So when things get quiet, it looks for more. It starts focusing on old memories, anything to get a high stimulation, just like it had. And that's why focus starts to feel so hard. If you want flow to feel natural, take low stimulating breaks during your work sessions. Here's a full list of easy reset ideas you can do in 5 to 15 minutes. Pause or take a screenshot now. Pick 1 or 2 for your breaks. The goal is to reduce stimulation so when you return to work, flow comes easier and it feels natural. All right, let's quickly recap the full flow system so you can put it into action right away. Have a clear target, know exactly what you're working on. The more specific, the better. Start at 60 to 70% intensity. Warm up your brain instead of driving into full force. Control your environment, remove anything distractions, turn on do not disturb, and just make sure that you're only focused on one thing. Manage your stimulation, take low stimulating breaks to reset and recharge so you can consistently enter flow. Do these 4 consistently and flow stops being random, becomes something you can step into on command. As always, if you got any questions, let me know. And until next time, I love y'all. Yilua.